Yeah, well. Where's the highway?
Well, welcome you all to the Middleton City Hall. I'm going to call the meeting of the Middleton Common Council for January 21st, 2022 order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Ramsey.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Nelson. Here. Kuhn.
Here.
Bizarre.
Present.
West.
Present.
Olson.
Present.
Burke.
Present.
Present.
All right. Well, the next item on the agenda is the comments from the citizens present. It's limited to 3 minutes per speaker. So we start with Jeff Russell. Identify yourself and you have 3 minutes. Would you be kind to take care of time?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thanks for your time tonight. My name is Jeff Russell. I'm a pilot and a hangar owner at the Middleton Airport here. And I want to speak to the resolution that Luke has drafted and is presenting tonight. And thank you, Luke, for trying to find a solution to this issue with turf operations. We really appreciate that. One of the concerns that we have, and we thank you for it, but we're concerned that the resolution leaves an opening for some people to still seek a prohibition on these turf operations. And we feel and the person is the chair of the airport commission, we feel that he's discriminating against recreational pilots at the airport. Based on an email that was shared with me today, he's laid out his path to continue to seek a prohibition on these turf operations. And we're really concerned about it. We don't think it's appropriate. So, again, we're here to support Luke in his resolution. I do have a couple of amendments, I guess, or suggestions I'd like to make. One would be to eliminate the reference to Mead and Hunt in the resolution. Mead and Hunt, it gives them too much power. They don't need to be the ones making the decision here about this turf operations. It's the city's airport. Keep the power with the city to decide what to do with the airport. And the other suggestion is to, when you follow the process to seek approval for this area, there's a process that's laid out in the FAA memo that you all received today from John Halleck. I ask that you follow that process. I know there may be an argument that that process isn't applicable in this part of the country, but it's still a process. The FAA recognizes that process. If they say it's not applicable, then it's not, but I believe it is. So I suggest that you follow that process. That's all I have.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Okay, so the next speaker is Joe McDonough.
Hello. My name is Joe McDonough. I'm a Middleton resident, tailwheel pilot, and hangar owner at the Middleton Airport. I want to thank Luke Fazard for working on a path forward with the resolution regarding turf runway operations. It's very important to me that these operations are allowed to continue. I use the grass landing area frequently, and I feel it reduces risk. It is worth noting that there have been no accidents or incidents related to use of the grass landing area. The reason this issue has gone this far is because of John Halleck's stated personal bias. In one email to Mark Opitz, Halleck states, "Once again, we want to move towards commercial aircraft that build our local economy, not pander to a handful of recreational pilots." In another email to Matt Hofeld, Halleck goes as far as to suggest we build our own airport. He states, "I've made a comment to a couple of the tail dragger guys that they should go get some land and build an airport. I built mine to FAA standards and had it certified." When Halleck first moved to prohibit adjacent turf operations, the issue was liability. The insurance provider agreed to cover these operations for no additional cost. The next issue was safety and legality. Halleck had high-level discussions with the FAA, and another airport commission member, Kevin Munson, filed a complaint to the FAA. If there was an issue with safety and legality, the FAA certainly would have acted. The next tactic was a possible violation of grant assurances. In Halleck's email to the council supporting this resolution, Halleck makes cost an issue as well. The area we are currently using is on airport property that is already maintained. There have been no changes to this area to accommodate our operations and zero additional maintenance. In an email dated January 8th of 2020, and this gets to Jeff's point, regarding locating a suitable landing area, Halleck states, Rich Morey, Greg Stern of Mead & Hunt, and Josh Holbrook of the Wisconsin BOA reviewed the site in an attempt to locate these areas using current regulations. None could be located. This was earlier this month, well before this meeting and the potential for tonight's resolution to be adopted. Halleck was already working to undermine any potential solution. It is clear to me that Halleck has a strong personal bias and is not capable of working toward any solution that does not meet his desired outcome of prohibiting these operations. John Halleck has been working on this issue for 6 months and cannot effectively bring any conclusion. Fortunately, Luke Fazard and Robert Burke also serve on the Airport Commission. Both Luke and Robert are very capable, knowledgeable, and fair. As part of the potential for the resolution to be adopted tonight, I respectfully ask the council to keep the path forward at the council level and let Luke Fazard and Robert Burke guide Mead & Hunt and gather the facts and work toward a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else who wants to speak? Anybody else who wants to speak on anything? All right. I'm going to close that part of the meeting. We're going to go to the approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments? All those in favor of the approval of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now we are on to resolutions. Yeah?
Just one comment on an item that was recommended by Finance Committee. Number 8, the temporary contract for network administration services. That is subject to the city attorney's final approval.
Correct. That was, I assume the
That's on the consent agenda.
agenda approval was as recommended by.
Finance.
By
and-
finance.
and
Just
personnel.
wanted to make sure because not everybody was at
Okay.
finance meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Okay, resolution number 1, 2020-01, declaring intent to assess costs of improvement for Parkside Heights reconstruction.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Need a second?
Second.
Any, yes, Susan?
Just want to make clear, this is only to state that the city can assess improvements, but not to specify what those improvements are. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, yeah. It's just a, Sean, that is correct, right?
Right, so this is declaring an intent. It will authorize staff to produce a report, which then would detail what those charges could be.
Okay, is that okay, Susan? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. All right, we are to item number 2. This is 2020-06 to support the city's grant application for participation in the LEAD for Cities and Communities Certification Program.
I'd move approval.
I'd second.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Susan?
Yeah, I've got a question. It listed a whole lot of costs that add up to $30,000. A lot of it was going to this meeting, and I'm having trouble with that coming up to $30,000.
The 30,000, it would be for the registration and then the certification review by a third party, which is very extensive. And as part of LEED certifications, you always have to register your project and then go through a certification review by the third party. And it takes them weeks to review all of your data, and that's where the cost comes in for most LEED projects.
So this would be certification for the whole city.
Yep, it would be free.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Kelly. So all those in favor of this motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to item number 3, 2020-07, resolution affirming the city of Middleton's position on turf runway operations adjacent to paved runway 1028 in the Middleton Municipal Airport, Modi Field.
I would make a motion to approve this resolution with possibly a few alterations. And we can,
I second that.
okay, so part of the discussion, are we in discussion phase?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So,
I would like to see if there's a way we can remove reference to Mead and Hunt. It just kind of came up, so I'm not quite sure. I don't have prepared wording for what we might modify it to, but I think the striking of Mead and Hunt probably wouldn't be too difficult.
do you want to make it subject to attorney approval?
Well, I mean, we might be able to address this pretty quick. I mean, if you're comfortable with the resolution, that'd be the airport managers, but on the assumption that they're not, you know, going to be consulting our experts. I mean, I think you could just eliminate just Ann, Mead, and Hunt and go that route.
From Article 2, yeah.
I mean, otherwise, you know, in consultation with either Mead and Hunt specifically, if you wanted, or you want to generically identify them as our airport engineering
Yeah.
consultants or something along those lines.
I'm comfortable just striking it entirely.
I would be too. The other point I was going to make, and it might just be the version that I have, but the very last line says approved this first day of October 2019, and I think we need to update the date on the document.
A little bit past that, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one is, so it says at the top, it says on the page 71 or page 3 of the resolution, it says, now therefore be it resolved by the Airport Commission of the City of Middleton. I would change that to Common Council of the City of Middleton.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments?
So from a practical standpoint, does this resolution then, from a practical standpoint, outlaw the use of any of the turf area for folks to land on? With the language that says shall not be considered active without FAA approval?
So the intention of adding that line was we reviewed some of the covenants associated with the FAA grants that we received, which stated that we did not have the authority to quote-unquote activate a runway without FAA approval. And there was some dispute around whether that motion that was made in May of 2017 could have been constituted as activating a quote-unquote runway. And so we included this to basically affirm that we as a entity, whether it be the airport commissioner or the common council, actually don't have the authority to activate a runway that exclusively relies with the FAA or exclusively lies with the FAA.
But, if I may speak,
Yes, Robert.
I think to be very explicit here, in no way is this resolution designed to prohibit
Correct.
any activity. Just as we have been told a few times by Chair Halleck that we do not have the authority to approve certain things, nor do we have the ability to prohibit things. That is strictly under the purview of the FAA and the Wisconsin Bureau of Aviation. So to answer your question, Dan, there is no prohibition here that we are stating. It is just not taking authority that we don't have to explicitly allow it, but we're not prohibiting it either.
Matt, would that be your interpretation also?
Well, with my understanding, I mean, I think it's clear that the term active is being used as a term of art, and so, I mean, I think that's how you would interpret the intent of the resolution, yes.
And then, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, Dan.
Say that to me again, please.
I said, given that, the term active is in quotes here. I think it's clear that that's being used as a term of art to say that we are not activating a separate runway. But yeah, I don't read anything in here that says that we are specifically prohibiting somebody from landing on adjacent portions of the main runway.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Robert.
Just as one or maybe both of our people who spoke at the public hearing stated, there actually is one, approval by a division of the FAA, and the FAA is a federal department, as everybody here knows. So the rules that they make technically affect the entire nation. Now, there is just one division, let's say, of the FAA that has approved landing just to basically the left or right of a runway, and that was the Northwest Mountain region of the FAA, and the states that they cover include Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Utah, Washington State, and Wyoming. It is a different division or different region of the FAA that would handle our area, Chicago, and that is noted in a letter that we received today from Chair John Halleck. But because it is the FAA, a federal organization that has approved these types of landings, I don't know what the FAA will rule across the board in every state of the nation, but they have ruled that it is allowed in certain places, and because they're a federal organization, I would let that stand that they're allowing this type of activity to occur at airports. And that would be, I don't think it affects our resolution tonight, but I just want there to be a very clear understanding that this is approved by the FAA for landings off the main runway.
Yes, Mike.
Luke, in Article 2,
Yes.
the way it currently reads then is a specific area adjacent to runway 1028 shall be designated for turf landings and takeoffs by the airport manager, which will be added to the airport layout plan. And I just wanted to suggest that it might be better to state that as "and will be added to the airport layout plan," because it's not the airport manager that we're adding to the airport layout plan.
Okay, so that's a good point, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Yes. I agree with your grammatical suggestion. Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments or corrections? Any other questions or comments or corrections? Okay, so the motion is to approve the resolution 2020-07 forming the city of Middleton's position on turf runway operation adjacent to paved runway 1028 at the Middleton Municipal Airport, Maury Field, with all the various suggested
Let me just read those one more time to make sure that we get captured in the record, which is on page 3. Now, therefore, be it resolved by we're striking Airport Commission and putting in Common Council of the City of Middleton. And then in Article 2 on that same page, a specific area adjacent to runway 1028 shall be designated for turf landing and takeoffs by the airport manager. We are striking "and meet and hunt," and then the word "which," and replacing it with "and" will be added to the airport layout plan. And then finally, just above where the mayor would sign it, we are approving this 21st day of January 2020 by the Common Council of the City of Middleton.
Okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, guys, go and do whatever you need to do. So, all right, agreements. Number 1, stormwater management system maintenance agreement amended, restated with Middleton Center phases 1, 2, 3, LLC.
Move approval is recommended by finance, except we didn't, so I'll just recommend approval.
I don't think it was approved.
No, I haven't pulled that back.
Yeah.
I just move approval.
Kind of broke record.
Okay, so Sean, everything looks okay to you?
Nobody else was saying anything.
I understand Gary did approve it. I've reviewed it. And it
It's
looks,
set up for routine.
it
So,
looks
yeah.
well, yeah, somewhat, yeah, but special. But I've looked at it and I understand.
First, we need a second.
I'll
So-
second.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is actually being amended since we didn't get previous agreement?
Okay, all right, come here, please, identify yourself and answer.
My name is Jake, and I work for T-Wall. So we developed the Middleton Center, and it's just amending the stormwater agreement to make room for Phase 3, which we're going to break ground on hopefully soon here. Middleton Center Phase 1 and Phase 2 are right there.
So it's adding Phase 3?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so it's just for Phase 3, so it's encompasses all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but the intent is.
It's
I now
not
understand
changing
your
1
question.
and 2.
No, yeah, it's kind of similar to what we've done in some other aspects with these agreements. Now, Phase 3 is being added, so rather than have 3 separate agreements, it just gets rid of the existing agreements and replaces it with one that now encompasses
All three.
Okay,
three.
thank you.
Good question,
Makes sense.
Susan. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Jake. So all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 2, Madison Community Foundation grant contract for programming activities at Stone Horse Green. We got $15,000 from
I move
Community
approval.
Foundation.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Anyone? It's a good news. So all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wonderful. Thank you. Item number 3, revision to airport hangar land lease agreement template. You
Move
want to take it,
approval.
Matt? Or?
I mean, the memo kind of speaks for itself. Larry did
Okay.
all these revisions, for the reasons expressed there. That's about the extent of my knowledge as
Okay.
as
I
well.
move approval.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just for the record, what we're trying to incorporate is a common sense approach to the perpetual character of the lease for hangar owners at the airport, so that, currently it ends at 2030. This allows for continual updates every 5 years with lease rate increases. And it also incorporates the language for stormwater utility into the lease, so that we have incorporated that. It's not just a hidden fee, but it's something we're up front with, and we include that within the lease as well as the rate that they're paying.
I think yes, Robert.
I support this, but I do have a quick question on how it works. Is people come and go, buy, buy off hangars from other renters, so to speak? Will the updates 5 years basically happen for everybody, or do we run the risk of having kind of a staggered thing as people come and go, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, this group of 10 hangar owners will pay their increase this year, and other people pay increases at other years? Or will it all be tied to every 5 years? Does anyone know how that would work out?
The intent when we entered into these lease agreements was to have everyone be on the same term, so that we, in the event we ever wanted to do something different with airport land, that we would have the leases all ending at the same time.
Okay.
But obviously the airport has proven to be successful, and so we had started getting requests from people to have especially their banks for financing, to have a longer term on these lease agreements, and so that's why the perpetual extension. But every lease document with the 40 plus hangars we have is tied to this 2030 and then 5-year renewals in perpetuity as long as they remain in good standing. And the fees, and when those leases reassign, they assume the existing lease. They don't start a brand new lease. They assume the term of, the lease agreement that was previously entered into.
Great, thank you for that
Thank you,
explanation.
Mark. And also, City Council approves those, as you know. Okay, any other, Luke or anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right, item number 4, amendment to agreement to Short Elliott Hendrickson's for the community campus planning project.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Award of bid, court, and professional service. Award of court to Parks Electric for the TV audio upgrade at the Pleasant View Golf Course Clubhouse.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 2, award of quote to J.W. Turf for a used John Deere Pro Gator for the Pleasant View Golf Course.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, rejection of bids received for Lakeview Park shelter.
Move we reject the bids.
Second.
Any questions or comments? You know why we are doing it, so. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to miscellaneous. Item number 1, direction for information technology department staffing.
I'd move that, let's see, how do I want to phrase this?
I think we want to approve as recommended by joint finance and personnel.
I think that is how I want to phrase that. We want to move as approved by personnel and finance committees.
Okay, need a second.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Item number 2, authorization for Police Chief Helen Brand's salary to exceed the classification and compensation plan maximum salary for grade 18.
Move approval as
recommended by joint personnel and finance.
Jinx. Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Chief is here, so
And just so the chief knows, it's for approval,
yes.
as recommended, $120,000 annual salary.
It's for approval. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So, all right, we are on to the ordinances. The first reading, final action may be taken upon approval of the motion to suspend the rules under section 1.07 Middleton General Ordinances. Item number 1, rezoning from Planned Development District Specific Implementation Plan to Downtown Business District B4, Stonehorse Green.
Move approval. Second.
Any questions or comments? We are going from PPD to B4 as we were before. Okay, all those in favor of the, did you suspend the rules?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Oh, yes.
Did you ask to suspend?
We suspend the
Yes.
rule.
Okay, so this motion is for suspending the rules. That means that it will be the final approval. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Item number 2, an ordinance to amend the repeal ordinance related to fire inspection in response to changes in state law. And again,
To suspend the rules and amend and repeal ordinance related to fire inspections.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Yes, actually.
Yes, Robert.
I think all of us received a nice big picture here, and I'm not sure, I think this is,
For number 4.
is that number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well then I'll just stop talking right now.
That's
Catch me in 2 topics though.
more part. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So, all right, item number 3. An ordinance to create official stop sign on Parmenter Street at Hubbard Avenue. Kathy,
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and adopt the ordinance that creates official stop signs on Parmenter Street and Hubbard Avenue.
I'll second.
yeah, this makes a lot of people very happy. So, any questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion to adopt the ordinance to create official stop sign on Parmenter Street at Hubbard Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Item number 4, an ordinance to repeal section 21.012I and 21.032I related to firearms and parks and conservancy.
I'll actually start off with a motion to reject this ordinance to begin with.
Rejected.
I can't talk about it until we,
Somebody second.
either somebody second
I'll
or.
sec-
I'll second.
for discussion.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
The point that I would like to bring up, and it ties in with this very large picture that we have in front of us, is that there are two separate state laws, to my understanding, that relate to guns. One of them, the state has said that cities cannot prohibit guns being carried in public places like parks. But the other one is that guns cannot be allowed within 1,000 feet of schools, is my understanding. And so what we have here in this wonderful display in front of us is the overlap of schools with parks in our area. And so I'm not quite sure where we go with this, because state law has contradictory directions for us in certain areas, maybe.
Not really.
Okay.
What we're repealing here is the two ordinances that say you may not carry a firearm by virtue of this being a park or conservancy. That does not mean that if you have a park or conservancy within the 1,000-foot range, that all of a sudden you are off. That's just a separate rule. So basically all this is doing is removing a rule that we don't have any authority to enforce. It does not at all impact other rules regarding firearms that we do have the ability to enforce.
Can I ask a follow-up question then? With this ordinance, would we be changing signs in areas, parks that happen to be next to, say, for instance, high schools that say guns should not be allowed in this area? And the reason I ask is because we have quite a few parks within 1,000 feet of a school, and if possible, I'd like to continue to let people know that guns are not welcome near our schools.
Well, we certainly would not be posting on any signs, guns are welcome. So, I hadn't really thought about whether, if we would, my one concern would be that we'd have a posting and it would be unclear whether, because you're posting it along with other park rules, that it is mistaken for a park rule rather than some other state law. So that would probably have to undergo a little bit of additional thought. And also, you see in some of these that, for instance, only portions of some of these parks or conservancies are within these. So all of, would say Tiedemann Heights Park Pond is not within. So if you had a sign that prohibited it, well, then that's contradictory. So, there might be some happy medium there, but I would be reluctant as a matter of policy to include or keep that prohibition within the list of park rules. Maybe there's some other way to go about it, but I think that maybe requires maybe a little more additional thought and discussion, but it just doesn't change the ultimate fact that its status as a park and conservancy is not a basis for which we can rely upon to get rid of open carry, and really should not affect the action on this ordinance tonight. This is really, as a practical matter, nothing. We can't enforce this ordinance, period. So all these questions are good and maybe things that we ought to be thinking about, but it should not affect the council's action on this ordinance.
Do you know if this 1,000-foot rule applies only to public schools, or could it be private schools, like we have Little
I
Red
believe it
Preschool?
includes private schools.
So like Little Red Preschool, that's a licensed preschool?
Yeah, whatever school, I imagine it
Daycares?
incorporates the definition of schools from like chapter 118 or.
Okay.
So would it include daycares?
Don't know off the top of my head. But again, it's going to include it or not, regardless of what we do with this.
Yeah.
Sure.
But just for.
Sure, yeah, no, I mean, these are all important questions just to understand how this all goes. But I mean, I can certainly look in more detail, and I don't know if our chief has more
That's fine.
off-the-cuff knowledge of how these other aspects work, but
Yes, Chief, go ahead.
We're very versed in CCW and open carry, as we've had a policy on this since 2012. Our staff's been well-trained. I think Matt's right on. We can't enforce it in the park. As far as the 1,000 feet of the school, that's been a big issue. So as a CCW permit holder, you can be within 1,000 feet. If you're open carry, you can't. So there's a lot of confusion on that. The laws, really each individual situation is how we take these. Like, are they within 1,000 feet? What are they doing with the firearm? I think Matt's right on. I don't think that we can't enforce this ordinance as is written now. If we have somebody within 1,000 feet of the school, we'll deal with that, but we haven't encountered that since CCW was implemented within the state. So again, our staff's very versed. We have a policy on it. We've trained on it. I think we can handle any of those situations if we got a call on that.
And just as a FYI, I quickly looked up, and school is defined as a public school, parochial, or private school which provides educational program for one or more grades between grades 1 and 12 only.
Daycares.
Daycares are not included in that.
Okay, Katie and then Robert.
Chief, so you're saying a sign that says no firearms permitted within 1,000 feet of this school is not a legal sign because a concealed carry person can actually walk within that?
Yes. Yep. There's a difference between open carry and concealed carry. What we're reading is concealed carry, you can be within 1,000 feet. Open carry, you cannot.
That's sort of confusing, isn't it?
that's, of course, concealed carry with a permit.
Yes.
That's the only
I see.
lawful way. And just another thing to be clear, if you've read these specific ordinances, there are other aspects like discharge and things that are also encompassed within these rules. Although we are eliminating the entirety of that language, we have other provisions in our ordinance that regulates these things citywide. So to the extent there is language in these provisions that we can enforce, by removing this language from the Parks and Conservancy, we still have citywide ordinances that address those other lawful aspects. So that's why we can just eliminate the Park and Conservancy specific language.
Okay.
Robert.
I guess what it comes down to is I absolutely understand the viewpoint that the state says that we can't prohibit people from having guns in parks, and that it's a separate law that relates to apparently just open carried guns near schools. But there's a lot of confusion here, and I'm just wondering, is there an urgency that this has to be decided tonight? Because I feel like maybe this is worth a little bit of study by our city attorney to find out what.
I mean, I would say it's decided. I mean, there's real action on the ground. I mean, we could never do this, but what we're going to have is still rules on our books that we know we can't enforce. This was called out. This really actually first came to my attention because I had incorporated this very same language just kind of reflexively into our rules for Stonehorse Green. Yep. And then it came up, and then just realized, we need to go back and follow up and remove these. So this is really just a cleanup and avoid having to, answer calls from people who say, hey, this is not legal. I mean, we can still look into these issues. I don't see any reason to hold this up to address and talk about those other issues because, as a practical matter, this is really just let's conform our ordinances to what we can actually enforce.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? Do you want to take that resolution, your motion back, or what do you want?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Davis might have to say.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, Robert, this falls under the law of supremacy, the state over local governments. We are a creature of the state, and we abide by and suffer by their rules.
Sure.
Remember, we have the gentleman who's pointed out this.
Always secession.
Questions. I'm sure he'd be able to talk to you.
Oh.
Okay.
I,
So
I-
if you have after.
I'm not opposed to anything, but guns near schools is the concern, and I see there being a little bit of a conflict in what I think is coming from the state level. That's my concern.
Yeah, well, in actuality, I mean, I know we adopt by reference. I would be a little surprised if we have not adopted by reference the guns within 1,000 feet, unless we've decided that that is something that should always be criminally prosecuted, but, I mean, that's something I can go ahead and look at and make sure we have incorporated that, and if not, have a reason why, report that and discuss it with L&O, but, I mean, it's only inconsistent insofar as you have a park next to a school, but it's, you know, you just have to look at a different rule, and,
Okay, so any other questions, Mark? Anyone else? So then you want to change your motion, Robert, or you want,
To vote on the motion.
pardon me?
Well, he could withdraw it.
You want to withdraw it? Or should we just vote on it?
Or somebody could put a substitute
Oh, yeah,
motion
we can
there
make it.
too.
Would we make
I'll
it?
make the substitute
Okay.
motion
Do-
to approve.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, now any questions or comments? All those in favor
Are
of
you
the?
gonna
Yes,
ask to suspend the rules and approve immediately?
yes,
On your,
yes.
What Mark
to
said.
Suspend the rules, yes. Okay, the motion is to approve. After suspending the rules, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the motion?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
okay,
Katie and Robert,
okay, 6-2, so, all right.
symbolic only.
We are on to the committee appointments, and the first one is the appointment of Jim Strom to the Tourism Commission.
I move approval.
Need a second.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes. The next one is appointment of Cheryl Wickroy to the Conservation Lands Commission.
Move approval.
Need a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes. Need a motion to go into closed session?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to go into closed session? Okay, so Luke, you are ready to,
I would like to make a motion authorizing the city administrator and the city attorney to move to intervene in the lawsuit between Yahar Materials and the town of Springfield.
I'll second that motion.
okay, questions or comments? Do you put any limit or a dollar limit or any of those? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.